Hello, thank you for joining me once again. I'm continuing the reading of The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. We are on chapter 12. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Welcome. Those that have not subscribed, now is an excellent time to do so. And thank you for all you returning viewers. So everybody push the like button and let's get started, okay? Chapter 12, The Paths. One morning I awoke and began writing down my dreams in my log as usual. But my dream lingered. I was still in that state in between sleep and awake. I had dreamt about and was remembering all the various cultures and people I had witnessed on my way to the monastery. They were all so different. And everyone was so locked into the habit patterns and beliefs of their particular life within their particular culture. Some perhaps were learning, changing, and growing. Others weren't going anywhere but in circles. As I climbed out of my womb, I noticed a note stuck under my mat. It was a reading list from Zayn. And this was the list. It's in italic. Created we the path upon our separation from the infinite one. The way out is the way back. One way back. Walk must we in our own excrement. Created we all obstacles. All must be met as we follow the road home. The path is. To return to the one is death, to the separate self. A great fight it will wage, great pain it will inflict. Only those who have learned the greater pain lies in separation from the one will choose the spiritual path. Many paths there are. All spiritual paths lead to the one. As closer you return, recognize you will. Your true self, your true family, recognize you will the face of a stranger. Judge not the path of another. Learn to understand that you may not understand the path of another. Judge the path of another only to judge and determine your own path. Never condemn another. Condemn only actions. The path takes us through walls of fire, burning us away, sharp teeth ripping away our flesh. Why then am I not harmed? The path is beset with traps. The windflowers draw us with their sweet perfume. Thorns prick at our feet. Mud drags us down. Above and below, rocks loosen and fall. Walk in the footsteps of those who have found the way before you. The ease or difficulty one experiences while walking the path to oneness is directly determined by the degree of their humility and unselfish love. Pain and pleasure are swings in the arc of the pendulum. To the degree the pendulum swings into pleasure, it will swing into the same degree of pain. Many paths present themselves that lead to pleasure. With free will we choose not pleasure, and you will create not pain. Chase not pleasure, and pain will chase you not. Accept the little pleasures that come to you. Endure the pain that may come to you with long-suffering patience. Hear me, O man. Turn from the darkness of night. Turn towards the love of light. Know that your mind leads your direction. Turn from the thoughts that lead you astray. Turn to the thoughts of giving and light. They lead you to oneness, not darkness of night. Find not the great path in power and glory. Find it, you will, in the dust at your feet. With head bowed in regret and humility, beg you must with all heart. Ask then the universal one to guide you. With heart that is ready to serve all it shows, pray that your will be that of the one. Pray the one send to you one who is one, to show you the light and illuminate your soul. Seek God first, and all else will come to you. As you walk your path, let this always be your prayer to the universal spirit. Your will be done, not mine, in me and through me. I left the library and was walking down the path to the hot pool. As I looked down at my feet on the path, it struck me. I was walking on my path, my spiritual path. I had finally found it and was really walking on it. I had a moment of elation, realization, and then a strikingly powerful Kundalini rush of energy, a spiritual evolutionary force that actually changes aspects of your physical/spiritual body as you evolve. It's explained more later in the book for those of you who aren't familiar with it. When I recovered, I decided I should go down to the hot pool to get a sweat, since such a Kundalini experience often triggered physical eliminations of toxins as it purified your body. The hot pool would help me release at least some of them in a more pleasant and easier manner. Besides, I wanted to contemplate all that I had read more. And also, I wanted to contemplate and examine my dreams and thoughts of the morning. Already in the pool, I found, not to my surprise, none other than my personal true teacher, Zain. "Ah, you have been kissed by God again, yes?" he said, referring to the Kundalini experience. "More like raped and beaten up. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke about it that way. It is a wonderful blessing and heavenly experience, even though painful at times. Yes, I have been kissed." Very good, very good. I slipped into the pool, which seemed hotter than usual to my sensitized body. "Father, why are there so many different cultures and ways of living? And why are some people really seeking God, and others just pretending, and others openly disinterested?" Way too much of a question for a simple answer. And I was just dealing with my own contemplations this morning as I enjoyed the properties of the water. "I'm sorry to disturb you." "No problem, son. I was about to get out anyway. You have already learned many of the reasons behind the separations. So I think what you really question in your mind is mainly about people's paths and varying cultures, is not it? Is it not? Yes, it is part at least. Anywhere we are, anywhere our journey through life takes us is our path. In that sense, everyone is on their path, but not everyone is on what we might call a spiritual path. A spiritual path is when the direction of our path is one that can finally lead us in the direction of spirit rather than materiality. lead us to unselfish love rather than selfishness, lead us to universal consciousness rather than separate consciousness. Our path often takes us to the school of hard knocks. So only when people are on their spiritual path are they learning. They are always being given the opportunity to learn regardless of the type of path. Karma is constantly being created, and life keeps trying to teach us something by providing us with our own self-created lessons that explode in our faces. Getting taught in that way has been called the school of hard knocks. But while everyone suffers the slings and arrows of life experiences, most people ignore these lessons which are being constantly presented to us. This is unfortunate when it is ignored because suffering can cause us to be introspective and really take a hard look, a deep look at the whys of our experiences. After we've had enough suffering to open our eyes, we realize we need to change. Therein lies the value of the pain. As you've already learned, transcending our separate self and renouncing selfishness is too painful. It's like crucifying yourself. Most people won't choose the spiritual path until they realize that the pain caused as a result of living selfishly outweighs the pain of the spiritual path. But, as I said, from time to time, people get hit with an unpleasant life experience, suffer, and get introspective. That's when they can more easily realize that it is worth it to choose the spiritual path. Is that the only way someone finally chooses a spiritual path? No, it wasn't that way with you, really. Your consciousness and destiny chose it for you. And there are also other factors that can influence people to take the spiritual path. During the introspective times brought by suffering, people are more aware of that constant painful gnawing that exists from the lack of inner peace. It reminds them, at least internally or subconsciously, about the great fact that the suffering caused by remaining separate and selfish will never end unless you return to oneness with the universal spirit, and that they can never really be happy as a selfish, separate self. Never. You may have temporary high points and get-offs, but that's it. On the other hand, the path of crucifying the selfish, separate self is just temporary. And when you're done, you have inner peace. And that's the only true happiness and the only happiness that never leaves you. When people suffer enough self-pain, they will eventually realize this. When one finally realizes this and thus decides to take the return trip, is when the real spiritual journey begins. This is the point when we each begin our real spiritual path. His words reminded me of all the different religions and spiritual paths I'd tried and studied before finding the one I was on now. Exactly what do you mean they're real spiritual path? Some are false? And why are there so many different spiritual paths and cultures? In search of the archetype. Oh, again with the multiple questions and so early in the morning. He was sounding like a rabbi, and he wasn't even Jewish. Well, I guess he was sort of Jewish in the broadcast ancient sense, in the broadest ancient sense, but also all the other religions rolled into one. Let me start with your last question first. There are as many specific paths back to the source of our being as there are individuals. It can be no other way. Each entity is where they are, and basically what they are because of the separate paths and experiences they have had and created in arriving at that point in time and space. Likewise, each entity has their own particular way to return or backtrack from that point. Let's use an allegory. Let's say there is this mountain of life. On all sides of this great mountain are paths, millions of paths. These paths have been created from people starting at the top, which is the point of oneness and of universal spirit. And all these paths are winding their way down the mountain, which is separateness and materiality in various ways. On each of these paths is a person. These people are at all kinds of different places on their paths. Some are down at the base of the mountain, some are near the top, some don't care to climb the mountain, and some want to because they have realized they must get to the top to find oneness and peace. To get to the top, they each have a different route, the path they made themselves from the top. It doesn't really matter where each person's path is, they all still end up back at the top. As we get closer to the top, some paths converge. We converge with soulmates and with soul groups. I understand soulmates, but what are soul groups? Soul groups are other beings who are like our spiritual family, those who were close to us in our previous state of existence or have grown closer to us for one reason or another. As we go higher, we need to grow closer with our soul groups, but particularly with our soulmates, because at some point right near the top, we need to merge and function again as one being with male and female elements if present, rather than as separated and opposing males and females. Anyway, as we get very close to the top, we find that we and the others who are very close to the top are getting more alike. That's because there are archetypes, patterns for certain beings that are the same at the higher conscious level. After all, the closer we get to becoming one, the more one we become. Thus, the more similar we become. While you probably have not seen this yet, you will. And you may have already experienced something similar. Have you ever noticed strangely strong similarities, physical or otherwise, between certain unrelated people? Yes, I have. I've also read about archetypes and seen certain examples of it. Little did I know at the time how much I would see. Most people don't get to actually experience this so directly and shockingly, but I have because of my path and my spiritual duties. During my first 3 years of traveling after leaving the monastery, I was in part working on bringing the people that were on the allegory mountain, yet still unaware of each other, closer together. The time was drawing near when more understanding of different beliefs, practices, and paths was becoming necessary. I witnessed entire spiritual communities whose members were identical or nearly identical doubles, as if they all had been multiple twins or clones of other people from other paths at similar levels of consciousness. These physical clones all had levels of consciousness that were virtually the same, yet they had different backgrounds, different types of spiritual development, and somewhat different beliefs. And this was no strange scientific experiment. It was simply a manifestation of our spiritual manifestation on earth. I even met a couple of doubles of Zines, but one had black hair rather than silver. Judge for yourself only. Now, for your second to the last question about false paths, some people who have concluded that their path is the right way think that since their path is the right way for them, it must mean that it is the only right path and that other paths are not the right way. They consider
all other paths false or a lost way. But this may not be true. Let's use the mountain allegory again. Some people think that others must not be on the path at all simply because they don't see the others on their path and thus going up the mountain. They don't realize that others are climbing their own paths on different paths of the mountain. So they make false judgments because they don't realize that they can't see the other people simply because they cannot see them from their point of view. And they don't realize that just because they can't see the other people, it doesn't mean they aren't climbing the mountain on their own paths. Stepping out of our own mountain allegory for a moment and trying to explain it in another way. It's like this. Many people don't accept the paths of others because they can't understand it from their point of view. They don't realize that the other person's path may lead back to God also. Getting back to the mountain allegory again, the closer that people get to the top, which means the more expansive they get in consciousness, the greater their point of view. The top of the mountain has been becoming smaller, narrower, closer together, and thus it is easier to see more sides of the mountain at the same time, and to see that others' paths are also converging on the top. We too often see individuals of one particular path taking the attitude that their way is the way and all others are not on the path. This reflects their lower position on the mountain, their degree of lack of consciousness. So, there isn't just one true spiritual path. Yes and no. How can I make it clearer? No particular path is the path for everyone at a given place and time in their consciousness, even though it may be the path for the particular individual who's on it. However, there comes a time when all must transcend their separations, their separate selves, to get to the top of the mountain where all are one. Those are the final steps of any true spiritual path. This is what we call the path of unselfish love. To get to the top, all must consciously climb the mountain step by step, no matter where you are starting from or where your particular path takes you. So, we shouldn't judge others at all. With certain necessary exceptions, we really shouldn't judge others unless it is for the purpose of making choices or navigating on our own path, in which case we must judge. For instance, you may have to judge whether or not someone you are thinking of hanging out with is bad or not because of the influence it will or may have on you. Otherwise, how are you to decide your own path? Or you may judge in order to learn from the mistakes of others instead of making them yourself. In a voting political society, people must judge the character of who they want to vote for in order to make the best choice for running a country. They may have to come to the conclusion that so-and-so is a bad person and shouldn't be running things. That is judging someone, isn't it? Yes. And is that wrong? No, of course not. There are many such judgments you must make in life, but most people don't just judge, they condemn. And there is a big difference between judging and condemning. Condemning is judging without unselfish love. It is a judgment tinged with resentment, hostility, hatred, or anger, and it is damaging to you. It is damaging to both the person who is condemning and the person who is being condemned. Judging alone is sufficient to allow you to take positive action. You don't need to be condemning of someone because they are doing something bad, and some things may not be bad, but just things that are not right for you. You have to discriminate that too. But there will be times when you need to judge that something is bad so that you do not do the same. Many things are necessary on the many paths people must tread to learn their lessons or pay back their karma. And it is not for us to condemn. It is also not for us to interfere unless it hurts us or others. So, when you decide you like someone or dislike someone, are you judging them or condemning them? It can be either. Most people place those they meet or know into one of those two categories: people they like and people they don't like. This is pretty much the same as dividing people up into categories of good and bad. But for those situations in which you do not need to discern your path by judging someone or deciding the ramifications of associating with them, there is another way they should be looked at. Rather than focusing on a person's so-called good qualities or bad qualities, liking or disliking them, one should see the whole being. Author's note: like with the car we described in an earlier chapter, that one good side and one damaged side. In order to serve the universal spirit and help our kin, one should not disregard the other aspects of a person's nature and focus just on the good or bad. There is something else to consider also that may mislead you in judging a person's characters if you are not seeing from a higher perspective. If you are seeing people with limited perceptions, you may see someone during a time and a day in which they are strongly exhibiting their good nature or bad nature. Someone else may have seen that same person during a time and day in which they were strongly exhibiting the opposite of the nature you perceived. Thus, people often can seem like a good or bad person just depending on your point of view or time of view. Again, seeing both sides is the only way of truly knowing the person. And we should have unlimited love for everyone without exceptions, just as the sun shines on without exceptions all the time in all directions. Now, if you are a true teacher dealing with a student who has asked for your criticisms, though, you have a job to do, and you must look for and point out faults in the student's characters at all times and not allow for moods. But that is your duty in such a situation. That is what they have asked you to do for them so they can improve and grow towards the light in our everlasting pursuit of perfection. But you should also point out their potential. So the path can be painful and humiliating for all students. What do you think? I smiled, obviously. What a stupid thing to say. You have yet to face your greatest trials. I've heard that before. It scared the yakdung out of me. I'm not afraid. Bring them on. Sure. He looked at me with that look again. Climbing to our crucifixion. As I said earlier, the path that lies before a person who is truly committed to transcending their separate self and returning to universal consciousness can be painful at times. After all, your separate self has surrounded your life with illusions and programming that support separateness and selfishness. It has created a false person of its own that has the illusion of having its own life, an actual illusion that is alive and living. To be one with the universal spirit again involves killing this false being and all of its selfish separate illusions and programming. This hurts. It will fight. It's fighting for its very survival. And you have not been thoroughly tricked into believing it. Believing it is you. So, it's like killing yourself. Not a simple task. nor a painless one. It is a path of cross-bearing and purification by fire. A now Islamic poet once put it this way: like dry wood takes to fire, the truth will come to you. How true? If you endure this purification by fire with patience, understanding, and humility, you will come to realize yourself, realize your essential nature/being. You will come to realize your essential nature/inner being/soul/oneness with the universal spirit. Why? Because the soul is indestructible, and when all else of you is purged and burned away from the suffering you experience, there will be the soul shining like the sun emerging from the clouds, making crucifixion fun, at least a bit easier. It is said that the path is covered with rose bushes. The flowers draw us and offer us pleasure, but attached to pleasure is a danger here. Try to take the rose, and the thorns prick us and cause us to suffer. Have you heard this? Love is a rose, but you better not pick it. Only grows when it's on the vine. Handful of thorns, and you will know you've missed it. Lose your love when you say the word mine. So true. Here's the good news. Along this path of rose bushes, one can find footprints that were made by the great ones who have gone before us. If we make sure that we walk only in their footsteps, we will avoid many of the pitfalls and detours and traps and the painful mistakes that we will come upon along the way. Humility and unselfish love lighten the burden. Traveling your path is made easier by humility and unselfish love. The greater your degree of humility, the easier and the shorter your path back will be. Spiritual growth can be experienced as agonizing torture that you must endure, or as an enlightening learning experience that you desire and relish. It all depends on you and your attitude. One of my novice students, one who learned the fastest of all thus far, learned so fast just because of humility. She was a total stranger, living with a man I was discussing life with. We were talking about what he was capable of doing for the world if he followed his spiritual path. She just listened. As I was leaving and preparing to put on my sandals, she bent over and put them on for me. A simple act, but a gesture of humility that indicated her true greatness. It heralded the potential that was within this shining novice. It reminded me of a text I'd read relating to humility during Grandmaster Thoth's last lifetime, the Essene lifetime as Jesus. It was regarding an argument between the students of Jesus. In the area and time, it was the custom to wash one's feet when entering a house to get the dirt off and keep the floors clean. It was a tradition and humble honor for the master of the house to wash your feet for you. But Jesus' students, more concerned with their egos, their selfish separate selves, and their status amongst his other students, refused to wash each other's feet. So, in deep sadness over their lack of humility and selfishness, Jesus did it, showing that true spirituality, true greatness, was clothed in humility. His actions exemplified humility, even more than his words. He who would be the greatest would be the servant to all. and he who would be the first will be the last. Seeking pleasure brings its mate. Father, I asked, I'm worried, upset, and I guess afraid. What should I do? Is there anything that can make it easier? Anything that I should be doing that I'm not? Should I deny myself urges and live more of the life as an ascetic? Would that help? I told you, humility is the biggest key. As far as being ascetic, contrary to how you may feel at times, ours is a gentle, moderate, and balanced path. And this is for good reason. From the earlier days of Atlantis, we have learned that extremes such as asceticism can have extreme repercussions and should only be used when such severity is really called for. This situation of yours is not as such. Then what should I do? First, learn this well, then apply it. Pain and pleasure are one of those dichotomies of the earth's plane. They are thus seemingly opposite, yet they are just the extreme polarities of the same thing, sensation. The range of sensations is traversed by a pendulum that swings within our emotions. If the pendulum swings into pleasure, it will swing back into pain. And the greater the depth of the swing into the pleasure, the greater the depth of the return swing into pain. For every self-gratification, there is an equal degree of suffering. This is an aspect of universal law. It is best to not seek pleasure. That doesn't mean avoid it. Just accept it when it comes, but don't pursue it. It keeps the pendulum much more centered. This is one of the ways to make things a little easier. In the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Wow, the headlines the editor chose for this chapter could be a great oldies musical infomercial. Back to our discussion. So, I create problems every time I seek to satisfy any of my selfish desires, which I keep doing all the time. So, I keep making more trouble and pain for myself? Of course. But the good news is you are realizing that. When you actually realize that unselfish love is the answer to every problem, you can stop creating more suffering and problems. But as it is with cause and effect, karma, you still have to deal with all that you have already created. There's no way to avoid or sidestep it. Actually, you can delay it. You have free will after all, and those of the dark side use delay and avoidance methods all the time. But if you do, you are only delaying, fooling yourself, making even bigger problems by piling up more karma, like sweeping dirt under a carpet and pretending it's gone. Someday you'll have to clean it. You'll have to clean it up. And the more you've piled up, the more you'll have to clean up eventually. By the way, have you looked under your mat lately? I have. I remembered the note he left me under my mat, and that actually I had been sweeping dirt and dust under it. Again, the bottom line is that the path back to oneness with the universal spirit and the attainment of universal consciousness is that of the crucifixion of the selfish separate self, selfish desire. Painful, yes, but humility eases the pain, makes the journey easier, and unselfish love lightens the burden. Getting down to work. Few have experienced enough or learned enough from their lessons in life to listen to the real truth about the separate self. The light of truth is a threat to the darkness/illusion/deceptions created by the self-body mind. And there are many deceptions and detours along the way, or stepping stones, depending on how you deal with them. I could say the path is merely chanting a special word for 5 minutes a day, and by doing this, you will be able to see your auras, have out-of-body experiences, read minds, etc. Just send a check or money order for $200 and we'll give you in your own magic word right away. But that isn't true, isn't real, and wouldn't really give someone all they need for spiritual growth, enlightenment, becoming one with God. But it would be popular and probably make someone a lot of money. Those who offer something to the selfish desires of people are very popular. There are many personal growths and spiritual growth methods being offered that don't threaten the separate selfish self. The most popular religions are the ones that allow the most selfishness and place the least self-sacrificing demands on the person, or are the least threatening to the separate self. Here's a little secret for measuring how real a particular spiritual tradition or growth method is. Just look at how popular it is or unpopular it is. It is not a hard or fast rule, but generally, the smaller or more unpopular the path is, the more it threatens the separate self, and thus the more real truth and growth potential it offers. Enlightenment is not easy and not something that can be bought and sold. It takes constant conscious effort and application in all aspects of life. The last part of my discussions with Zayn about paths dealt with this subject more in depth. You haven't totally answered my first question yet, Father. You mentioned real spiritual paths, which seem to intimate that there are false ones. But you didn't seem to really say it in that context. I know you're very busy today, but would you please tell me why, if you have time? I don't have the time. But there is a sundial over there if you really need it. No, seriously, Father. Seriously. Okay, there are definitely purely false spiritual paths, but even some of those offer something real. Then there are other paths that are semi-false in that they are not the person's ultimate true path. These may be just a temporary yet important part of a person's entire spiritual path, or they may become a trap depending on the individual's level of consciousness, sincerity, or choices. Some traditions, paths, or methods are traps, setups, excursions off the seeker's real path that a seeker can get caught up in. Nevertheless, people can move on through these experiences as part of their path. As I said earlier, like stepping stones along the way. Some people will go right on through such traps onto more spiritual paths if they have the proper unselfish spiritual attitude. It all is depending on the individual's ideas and applications within such circumstances. Then there are those who set up their own traps and are attracted to and attracted by false spiritual paths. For instance, if you are only interested in appearing to be spiritual, or just interested in spiritual trappings like auras, psychic powers, channeling, and such, then what we are saying here will not be of much interest to you. But there are plenty of things out there that will, and plenty of organizations and people who will take your money and your life. That is not to say that auras, etc., are false. Of course, these things exist, but they are minor parts of the more important whole, and they shouldn't be side effects, outgrowths of an unselfish spiritual life. But I have always been fascinated by such things. In fact, I had some unusual abilities as a child. Is that wrong for me to be interested in them? No. But while you were interested in such things, were you not even more obsessed with finding real love and people of kindness, gentleness, compassion, and harmlessness? Yes. Now that I think about it, that was really my priority goal and drive. And that is why you had powers even as a child. Spiritual phenomenon should not be a primary focus of interest, lest they should become stumbling blocks and a means of avoiding real spiritual development. And the only way you can have such abilities without abusing them and causing the effects of such abuse are to first become a harmless, unselfishly loving entity, one who will use or not use such abilities in a positive, creative manner all the time. One who will use or not use such abilities in a positive, creative manner all the time. You can force the development of such abilities with certain drugs, certain types of the yogas, and many other teachings. I apologize. I'm almost done with this chapter. You can force the development of such abilities with certain drugs, certain types of the yogas, and many other techniques, but you will create problems for yourselves and others. Powers come naturally to you from the universal spirit when you have simply made yourself harmless and caring under all circumstances. To achieve this, you must first unselfishly use whatever normal abilities you have right now in whatever situation you are in now. Just as an employer will promote a person who is excelling in working with the circumstances of his present position and demonstrating his readiness for greater responsibility, so does one advance in the universal company. What employer would promote someone who is doing a poor job, or promote someone who cheats or attempts to get more power before they have earned it? No sane employer promotes people unless they deserve it, and neither does God. So to seek first to make yourself worthy through developing those virtues of unselfish love, like patience, humility, understanding, always considering the best interest of others before yourself. Then hold on to these virtues constantly, perseveringly, through your times of suffering. Such times are the testing times. When you have passed your test, then you will be given whatever extra abilities you need, your material you need, as you need them for the universal work, without even trying to get them. And that is why I seem to be gaining new abilities even though I don't desire them. Yes. But what about the practice? We are taught methods of working in the other realms and commanding such abilities and powers. These are not for you to personally use, Peniel. They are for making in you a better vehicle for the universal spirit to work through. The hierarchy knows when and what to do, and will use the abilities you have developed when it is appropriate within the will of God. You just need to open up the channels so you can be used. When you are through with your training, you will have the ability to channel powers that can level great cities or move a mountain. But you are not to use such power. Just sit back, relax, and let it happen if it be the will of God, just by doing it through you. And it may never occur, or it may occur daily. It is not for us to decide. Finding your true path. You said, "It has been foretold that I will present the ancient Atlantean children's teachings to the world. When I finally become an adept, a true teacher, and I do this, what should be the one most important thing I should say about walking a true course back to the one?" Was our discussion of just one important thing? There is much to say, but the most important ones, if you must limit them, are these. Remember the footsteps through the path of the rose bushes. Tell them, pray for them, and find a true teacher. Detailed in the next chapter. Work on transcending your separate self. Be ever vigilant regarding your thoughts, and stop feeding the monsters with your thoughts of selfishness and its illusion of separation. And practice the virtues of unselfish love with others of like kind to displace selfishness and break the illusion of separateness. Yet there is much that a person must suffer, much work people will need to do, and much they must decide inside themselves before they will even ask such things about their path back to God. The spiritual seeker makes a series of steps before he even sets foot on his true spiritual path back to the oneness with the universal. Obviously, they must first realize that they need to change and need to break free from old programming and behavioral patterns. Next, they need to realize they can change, regardless of how difficult or impossible it may seem. They must realize that they have free will and are only a slave to their programming and selfish desires, so long as they allow themselves to be. Once a person gets to this point, then they must decide how and when they are going to go about changing. They must choose their paths and choose to stop walking their old path in order to start upon the new one. This process involves taking responsibility, taking real responsibility for their own life, for their own life direction, for a new life, and even more importantly, the ultimate responsibility, serving God and flowing with universal will. Zayn's words rang through me like being in the tower of a cathedral as the bells were ringing. But the separate self wants to prevent you from doing this, so it will influence you to procrastinate at any cost. It will use any and every excuse to keep you from taking responsibility, even using responsibilities as an excuse to avoid your real responsibility. I remember a great quote that an elder student of mine showed me from a book. I believe it was called Illusions. It was fiction and had a book within a book called The Messiah's Handbook. The saying went something like, the best way to avoid responsibility is to say you have responsibilities. How true. I have seen so many seekers never evolve spiritually because they didn't want to break away from their responsibilities. They have jobs, commitments, contracts, relationships of all kinds. So many things that are more important than becoming unselfishly loving and serving God. The only real and great responsibilities. Or some say they will start their spiritual path right away, just as soon as they do such and such first. Of course, they never seem to complete such and such, or there is always another such and such around the corner. So they never start walking their true spiritual path. There is a profound ancient saying that goes, seek God first, and all else will come to you. Nothing could be more true. And nothing is more important than finding God. So what if you become successful? What is it worth if you don't have real love and God in your life? So what if you did break such and such commitment? What was the commitment worth without real love and God in your life? So what if you didn't complete such and such? It is nothing compared to finding and serving God. All those things, all those kinds of things are delays, keeping you from changing, keeping you from being and doing what you are really supposed to be. They are all temporary things of this world. They won't last. Neither will they matter in the end. If you died tomorrow, will they stand over your grave and say, he worked hard, kept his appointments, and supported his ex-wife according to the terms of their agreement? His alimony will be missed. His jokes in the pub will be missed. But on with our lives. Or will they say, you will be missed in this world? The inner light you shined was a lamp for me and all who knew you. The love and kindness you spread changed my life and touched thousands of souls who were enriched by your work. And in turn, some are carrying on the lamp so it may illuminate the path for others. Keep a seat in the next plane warm for us. We will be with you soon. Some of you who read this are stragglers who were already supposed to be or still supposed to be leaders. You are fallen light workers. You should have returned to the light before now. But you have allowed yourself to drag your feet and avoid your true responsibilities. You have very little time left to change yourself before the great changes are upon this world, and you become bound in darkness for ages. If you want to catch up, you must take rapid measures to attain the spiritual position you were supposed to have already taken. Or perhaps you are one of the survivors of the great changes who are reading this years later. One of the many decent people who survived the changes or are in the midst of them now, and the suffering is spiritually purifying you in spite of yourself. In either case, there is no time to delay. Every moment is precious. Don't squander it. There is no time for anything else anymore except your inner work or helping others with their inner work. Accept your real responsibilities. Drop everything now. Find your path and walk it now. Find your true teacher and get on with your transformation. Spend every moment of your remaining life in an all-out concentrated effort to change your life from one that is separate, self-oriented, to one that lives to serve and manifest the universal spirit. The great affirmation. As we walk our path, we should let our daily affirmation or prayer to the Infinite One be, your will be done, not mine, in me and through me. And we should not just say it, we must feel it, live it, practice this. And one eternal day, you may find that God's will be your will, as one no longer separate. You will realize I am, and your actions, your lifestyle, your being will reflect this. Your life will be as one giving, like an endless stream of universal love flowing forth, rather than the empty, short-lived, endless circle of wanting, trying to get, and fear, trying to avoid. Okay, that was chapter 12 of the Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. We will start again on page 182 of chapter 13. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for pushing that like button. And those that have not subscribed or pushed the like button, why not? Do you know that the people who listen to this is literally 50-50. Half subscribers, half unsubscribers. So if you're listening, please subscribe. Help me reach my goal. Help me help YouTube push the algorithm for more people to receive this highly, highly important message, okay? Love you. Have a great day.